Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's having a beautiful start to this day. Welcome back to Be Elite Live. It's Wednesday, and today I'm going to talk about a very important topic, especially for North Americans. And the topic is insulin resistance. And insulin, as we all know, is related to blood sugar. But insulin is also the I would say probably one of the most disrupted hormones in North America, along with cortisol and sleep hormone. It's always 99% of the hormone profiles that I do, insulin is in the top 3, usually actually even in the top 2. Now insulin is the hormone of aging. So the more disrupted your insulin is, the faster you're going to age. Okay, so for those of you who care about slowing down the aging process, you have to look at balancing your insulin and your blood sugar, right? So we're going to look at today what is insulin resistance, how do you know some of the symptoms of insulin resistance, and in my next video I'll talk about strategies of how to move from being insulin resistant to being insulin sensitive, right? So let's get this going. So the first question is, what is insulin resistance? And insulin resistance is when your body does not recognize and use carbohydrates effectively as fuel. Okay, so regardless of how you train, regardless of you're doing less carb, more carbs, over a period of time, it could be genetic. It could also be over a period of time, right? From childhood, our eating habits as kids, and as we grow up, what have we created? What is the body used to now? If you cannot handle carbohydrates, if your body doesn't recognize them, use them as fuel, you're going to have certain symptoms and certain side effects, and that makes you insulin resistant. The goal is to become insulin sensitive. Okay, now it could take anything from 6 months to 2 years to become insulin sensitive, depending on how insulin resistant you are right now. Okay, so something I want to clear is, if you're insulin resistant does not mean you're diabetic, okay, or pre-diabetic. However, if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, you are definitely insulin resistant. Okay, so you could be insulin resistant and not have diabetes, or not be pre-diabetic. So I just want to clear that, because I've been asked that at many seminars. People say, oh yeah, but I'm not diabetic, or I'm not pre-diabetic. Yes, but that doesn't mean you're not insulin resistant either. So how do we know if you're insulin resistant? So number one, this is a very obvious giveaway, is if you're storing body fat in your upper back, right under your shoulder blade, if you're storing stubborn fat there, or if you're storing stubborn fat around your love handles, then that's a very clear giveaway that you're insulin resistant. Carbs don't work for you. Okay, that's number one. Number two is, let's say if you're eating a carb meal, do you find that it makes you sleepy, makes you tired after a high carb meal, right? That's another sign that you're insulin resistant, because your body's not able to process the blood sugar. So that's another giveaway. Good morning, Natalie. The other sign could be, let's say when you eat a high carb meal, you tend to gain weight after. So then, let's say at night you had pasta, you had a piece of dessert, and next day you weigh yourself and you're up 3-4 pounds, maybe even more, or you feel very bloated, you feel very heavy. Chances are that's a sign that you are insulin resistant. Okay, now obviously it could mean that you are eating foods that don't digest well for you, and that could be a digestion issue as well. But that's one of the symptoms, given that everything else is good, that your blood sugar is not balanced or not stable throughout, and you're insulin resistant. Okay, another symptom is your hemoglobin A1C. So that's a test you can actually get done by your doctors. It's called hemoglobin A1C, if that reading is, ideally that reading should be 4.8 or below, and that's ideal. That means you're insulin sensitive, that means you process carbs very well. But if your hemoglobin A1C is higher than 4.8, then that says we got to look at a couple of things of how to balance your blood sugar, right? So These are some very obvious symptoms. Some people, I also find that when they have a high carb meal at night and it disrupts their sleep, that could also be a sign of insulin resistance. Another possible symptom, is that if you wake up in the middle of the night between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m., that also could be a sign. Good morning, Dad. That also could be a sign that you are insulin resistant. Okay, it's not necessary that it is, but it is a common symptom I find with people who are insulin resistant. They tend to wake up between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. So just to recap some symptoms of insulin resistance. Number one, you store stubborn body fat in your upper back, right by your shoulder blade and your love handles. That's number one. Number two, a high carb meal makes you tired or bloated or sleepy. Number three, you tend to gain weight when you eat a high carb meal. And number four, your hemoglobin A1C test result is above 4.8. Some other symptoms could also be waking up in the middle of the night between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Okay, so what does it mean so if carbs cannot be your source of fuel, what is the source of fuel for you? How do we become more insulin sensitive? Those are some things I'm going to talk about in my video next week, next Wednesday at 9 a.m. So tune in, and I hope this information is beneficial. Thank you so much for everybody who's tuned in. Natalie, Dad, Stephanie, Carrie, good morning. And I will see you guys next week. Take care.